So I just started to get all my stuff ready for my taxes, and I saw that I brought in about 35,000 or so for YouTube, and my yearly salary at my job was 122 roughly, give or take a couple $100 there. That's a lot of money. This is what I brought in before taxes and expenses for my business and whatnot. But it feels like I shouldn't feel like a wage slave, and it feels like I shouldn't feel so broke. It feels like with that much money, I should have more to show for it in savings. If I didn't have my YouTube money, I would have been barely getting by at the end of the month. I don't really have much to show for that. Like, we drive a 2019 Toyota minivan. Like, that's not a super nice car. It's not like I got a Tesla or a Benz. Like, my wife's driving a minivan. I don't have toys, like big expensive toys. I don't have dirt bikes or a boat or anything like that. Like, I don't feel like I live outside of my means. A lot of the expensive tech stuff that I have in my office are all business expenses that I write off. So to feel like so broke and to feel like I don't have enough money, it makes me feel like I'm a wage slave. And I feel like I've been a wage slave for a very long time. I've been working like my whole life, right? And I've worked myself up to a good salary. While there might be a little bit of lifestyle creep, like, I'm not going to deny that we live in a nice house that we rent, right? Because we can't afford to buy. But it feels like it ain't that nice. With rent and utilities, I'm paying over $3,000 a month just for the house that we're renting. And I think about like 10 years ago, what $3,000 a month would get you for a rental when I was living in Vegas was like a mansion. And this ain't a mansion, like, by any means. Like, I'm just in some cookie cutter suburban neighborhood where I can pretty much touch my next door neighbor's house from my backyard because it's so close and small. It's not anything crazy. And I know that I'm in a high cost of living area, which is impacting that. But like, I didn't think that I would be making this much money and still feel like I don't have enough. It still feels like we're barely scraping by. One vehicle, one income household. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. We don't pay for childcare. If we were, it would cost us so much more money that, like, she would have to get a job. And a big part of why she stays home is so that we don't have to pay for childcare and that she can, like, stay at home with the kids because she wants to. And I'm really glad that I'm able to provide for my family and afford this, but doesn't feel like what I thought making this much money would have felt like if you would have told me 5-10 years ago that you were going to be making $100,000 a year. I didn't expect to feel so poor when I'm technically probably like in the top 10% of earners. I don't know exactly. I'm just throwing that out there. But I do think that bringing in $150,000 a year should provide us a much better life and financial situation. But it doesn't. It just feels like I have to just keep working to pay for the stuff that we have. And I don't feel like I get to enjoy life. I thought that I was going to be making six figures and we were going to be taking a few vacations a year and we were going to have a bunch of extra money left over and we were going to be able to save for retirement and I was going to be investing in the stock market and I was going to be putting away for a rainy day. And it feels like if I didn't have the extra money that I was making from other things like my YouTube and my side hustles, like my $120,000 a year job still wouldn't be enough to just pay for the bills. It feels broken. Like, I feel like, man, this is what I worked so hard for. Like, I busted my ass to get to where I'm at and to get to like this point. Like, I studied hard. I worked hard. I made it out from the dirt. Like, I really did. Like, from the way that I was raised, considering like I had nothing handed to me at all. Like, I am a complete success story. I am a living, breathing embodiment of the American dream and making it in the US. Like, I feel like this is exactly what everybody dreams of. Doesn't feel like it's enough. So then when is it enough? Do I have to make 250? At that point, will I feel like I'm comfortable? Because I feel like I can barely breathe. I feel like if it wasn't for having like a little bit of money in my savings and a little bit stored away, I feel like we are just a couple bad mistakes, a couple bad days from like being broke. And as someone who has come from like not having much, and as someone who once upon a time made $30,000 a year, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if I made half of what I make now. But if you would have asked me 5 years ago, if half of what I make now, which would be like 70,000 a year, was good money, I would have told you yes. Like I would have told you like making 70 a year, like I would have been happy with 70 a year. My first software developer job was for 50 grand a year, and I worked there for 2 years. And at that point in time, like it felt like our bills were a lot cheaper. This was almost 7 years ago now, but it felt like that was okay. It felt like I could afford stuff back then. Now I make almost double that. And our lifestyle hasn't changed much. Like when I say that we have a little bit of lifestyle creep, it's mostly because of how much we have to pay in rent, but it's not like we live in this extravagant house. Like if I could get this same house for half the price, I totally would. I don't want to have to live in a house that's so expensive. Like I don't want to pay $3,000 a month for rent. I mean, this doesn't feel like a $600,000 house. My house in Vegas was half the price of this house, and it was a nicer house. It's just because of inflation, cost of living, and being in a high cost of living area, it really sucks. I got to make some improvements and some changes. And that's a big reason why I'm like leaving my job and we're going to Asia for a while, because it doesn't feel like it's worth paying this anymore. And I think that making 150 grand a year doesn't mean shit if you spend it all on rent and food and gas. I'm tired of doing that. So I'll take a huge pay cut and make half of that or make a third of that and go live in a country where it's cheaper to live and not have to pay as much. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is how much money you have left over. It doesn't matter how much money you bring in, because if you're spending it all on basic necessities and like housing and food and gas and your car, then what's the point? I'd rather make less and just live much cheaper, be able to travel and enjoy my life and spend time with my family, because I feel like all I do is work for what? To say I make 150 grand a year, but be broke? No, I don't know. I'm kind of tired of it. And it kind of sucks. All right. That's all I wanted to say.